No, it wasn't plugged in, sir.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So we continue discussing the book Al-Mulaqis Al-Fiqhi by Sheikh Salih Fawzan Hafidullah Ta'ala, and discussing matters relating to fara'id, matter that relates to inheritance. We're discussing concerning different portion that each individual is deserving, are those who are deserving from the inheritance. So we continue from where we had stopped in the last lesson regarding those who are given certain portion. Aywa.
Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillahi qala ma'alif hafidhahullah, chapter 12, page 279, title Agnation. Agnation, linguistically in Arabic, refers to the meaning of supporting. In the rules of inheritance, the word refers to one's agnate relatives. Thus, the agnate relatives of a person are his relatives from the paternal side, the father, the son, and the full or half paternal half brother, and the father's full or half paternal brother. According to the laws of inheritance, the agnate relative is the person who gets an undefined share, because if he is alone without any other claimants to the inheritance, he gets the whole estate. However, if he is not alone, he is to get what remains after the prescribed shares of inheritance are distributed. This is according to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Give the shares of inheritance prescribed in the Quran to those who are entitled to receive them. Then whoever remains should be given to the closest male relative of the deceased.
So the author, Hafidullah, discussing concerning, and we have completed discussing concerning those who are deserving from the mirat by way of furud, those who are set portion in the mirat. Now he discussed concerning another group of people that also receive from mirat, but by way of ta'asib. So ta'asib, that if certain people are not there, then this person then they would receive on their behalf. So that would be the discussion regarding of those people who are entitled to receive due to of others not being present. Aywa.
Agnation is divided into three categories: being an agnate relative by oneself, being an agnate relative by other relatives, and being an agnate relative with other relatives. The first category, agnation by oneself. This category includes all males concerning whom there is a consensus that they are entitled to inherit, except the husband and the maternal half-brother. Those who are agnate relatives by themselves are 14. The son, the son's male child, and so forth in descending lineage, the father, the paternal grandfather, and so forth in ascending lineage, the full brother and the paternal half-brother, the son of a full brother or the paternal half-brother, and so forth in descending lineage, the father's full brother and the father's paternal half-brother, and so forth in ascending lineage, the son of a full or half-paternal uncle, and so forth in descending lineage. It also includes the mamutta, manumita.
Okay, that's the word in English.
Manumita,
Okay.
Male or female of a slave.
So mean concern the one that emancipate a person. So one who emancipate a person, male or female. So let that person who is said to be like a non-free person, to let him be a free person. So we mentioned in these cases that such a person that can inherit from that person who they have emancipated or freed.
The second category, agnation by other relatives. This category includes four groups. One or more daughters of the deceased with one or more sons of the deceased. the daughters of the deceased sons with one or more of the deceased sons' male children, provided that he should be at the same level of kinship with her, whether he is her brother or her paternal cousin. She could also be an agnaent relative by the grandson who is lower than her in the level of kinship to the deceased. The evidence that these two groups are categories of being an agnaent relative by other relatives is shown in the noble verse in which Allah exalted be He says, Allah instructs you concerning your children, i.e. their portions of inheritance, for the male, what is equal to the share of two females. Surah An-Nisa, Ayah 11. This noble verse considers the children and the sons' grandchildren. Number 3, one or more full sister of the deceased with one or more full brother of the deceased. Number 4, one or more paternal half-sister of the deceased with one or more paternal half-brother of the deceased. The evidence regarding the last two groups is shown in the verse that reads, if there are both brothers and sisters, the male will have the share of two females. Surah An-Nisa, Ayah 176. The verse considers full siblings and paternal half-siblings. Thus, the sisters of the following male relatives of the deceased are to inherit by virtue of agnation by them. The deceased son, male child. The sisters of the other male relatives of the deceased do not share them in inheritance, such as sisters of the deceased's male nephews, the sisters of the deceased's paternal uncles, and the sisters of the deceased's paternal cousins. The third category, agnation.
Okay, so the mentions regarding these categories, as mentioned regarding that, as for concerning asabat or asari, ta'asib, that these are the ones that they receive something from the inheritance, but in these cases it's not fixed, so it varies. So their portion is not per se fixed, as the one that we discussed last week and the previous lessons, that those that they receive set portion. So their portion is already known as to what they receive. As for these ones, it may vary depending on who is present, but it is not per se set by way of the as the previous case. But these ones, they do inherit. Aywa.
Third category, agnation with other relatives. This category is divided into two kinds. Number 1, one or more full sister of the deceased with one or more daughter of the deceased, or with one or more of the deceased son's daughter. Number 2, one or more paternal half-sister of the deceased with one or more daughter of the deceased, or with one or more of the deceased's son's daughter. This is the opinion of the majority of scholars from amongst the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, the successors of the companions and those who came after them. They say that the full sisters and the paternal half-sisters of the deceased become agnant relatives with the deceased's daughters or the deceased son's daughters. This evidence is illustrated in the hadith that states, Abu Musa, may Allah be pleased with him, was asked regarding the inheritance of a daughter, a son's daughter, and a sister. He said, the daughter is to take one half and the sister is to take one half. Abu Musa added, go to Ibn Mas'ud and he will tell you the same. Ibn Mas'ud was asked and was told of the verdict of Abu Musa. Ibn Mas'ud then said, if I give the same verdict, I would stray, I would not be of the rightly guided. The verdict I will give in this case will be the same as that of the Prophet ﷺ. One half is for the daughter, 1/6 is for the son's daughter, so that both shares make 2/3 of the total estate, and the rest is for the sister. Related by the group of compilers of hadith except Imam Muslim and An-Nisa'i.
Who are those? If they said by the group, except for Aish?
Muslim and Imam Muslim and Nisa'i.
So who will be the ones that narrate the hadith? Where the hadith will be found?
Bukhari.
They said al-Jama', so they mentioned Jama'.
Abu Dawood.
Aywa. Al-Jama'. Man maksub al-Jama'. Rawahu Jama', said the group. Who are the group? In general, what a group?
Oh. Imam
So you have Bukhari, Muslim,
Abu Dawood,
Abu Dawud, Nasa'i,
Ibn Majah.
Ibn Majah, one remain, Tirmidhi. So that's the group in that, so that's a group in general. So it mentioned Rahu Jama illa Muslim wa Nasa'i. So who remains? Aywa. So these were the Jama'i. The Jama. Aywa. That's Kutub al-Sitta, so the Jama. So it was also the same as Kutub al-Sitta.
The agent relative by oneself forgets the whole estate if he is alone, as Allah exalted be He says, and he inherits from her if she dies and has no child. Surah Nisa, ayah 176. Thus, in this case, the brother is to inherit all the estate of his sister. Only the agent relative by oneself enjoys such a ruling, but such an agent relative shares the rest of the agent relatives in the inheriting. What remains after the prescribed shares of inheritance are distributed. This is based on the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Give the shares of inheritance prescribed in the Quran to those who are entitled to receive them. Then whatever remains should be given to the closest male relative of the deceased. However, if nothing remains after the legal heirs take their prescribed shares, the agent relatives inherit nothing. There are 6 sides for the agent relations. They are respectively as follows: filiation, paternity, brotherhood, brother's sons, relationship of the paternal uncle, and wala, which is as mentioned before, caused by the favor for the manumitter, does for the manumitted. The following hadith of the Prophet ﷺ illustrates this as he says, "Verily, the wallah is for the emancipator," related by Al-Bukhari and Muslim. In case 2 or more agent relatives are involved, they have one of the following 4 cases. The first case, they may share the same agnation side, the same level of kinship, and the degree of kinship. In this case, they share the inheritance together as the sons, the full brothers, and paternal uncles. The second case, they may differ in the agnation side only. Thus, the one having the closest side of kinship has the priority in inheritance according to the above-mentioned order. As such, the case of a son and a father. In this case, the son has more priority than the father by agnation. The third case, they may share the same agnation side and differ in level of kinship, such as the case with the son and the son's male child. In this case, the son has the priority over the grandson as he is closer to the deceased in level of kinship. The fourth case, they may share the same agnation side and level of kinship, but differ in the degree of kinship, so that one of them is stronger in degree than the other. In this case, the one having the strongest degree of kinship will have the priority, such as a full brother with a paternal half-brother. Thus, the full brother has the priority over the paternal half-brother, as the full brother is related to the deceased through the 2 parents, while the paternal half-brother is related to the deceased through the father only.
It's regarding concern these masahil that relates to inheritance that we're discussing, that one is somewhat regarding what is laid down in the Sharia regarding inheritance. That is somewhat a topic that that is not discussed as much as it should. So of those topics that are not discussed as much as they should, as we had previously mentioned, that everyone at some point may go through have to face this particular matters regarding inheritance. So if a person dies and he has wealth, then those things need to be factored in regarding if there's sufficient wealth that the person have been buried, then the person's debt have been paid, then whatever remain, those things to be distributed in a particular way. So that's concerning inheritance. But as well, because this science per se is not that I've studied, you find as it are amongst us as it should, and also you'll find most of what is mentioned in the books is more concerning is that the theory. So it's like studying maths and certain science. So you might have the formulas, but if you don't have the practicality, it kind of somewhat, it doesn't stick the same way. So that's the thing with inheritance, that we're just going to concern the formulas, get a general broad understanding regarding of those people that may inherit and the reason why they are inheriting, and those people who do not. But as for the detail of it, but to get our mind fully around it, it will take going through the topic again and a slow, more practical approach. But for now, in this book, it's just going to somewhat talk, and also sometimes that there's some of these science that they mention that you find some of the ulama who did master inheritance. Even though they said for a person to be a true faqih, he's supposed to master inheritance, but some may not. Now, based upon that, said because of they may have studied it, but because they're not involved in the practicality of it, and this, so they kind of somewhat they lose it. But they have a general idea concerning what it is, but the lack of the practicality, they're not able to retain most of the information. And also here, as I said, is just to get a general idea regarding what is involved, who gets what, is not necessary at this stage that the person has to understand everything. And also in studying, as they mentioned that, in studying a book, that it is not a requirement that the student have to learn everything. But to get an idea or get a general idea, then that is something to start with and then build upon this, as this topic needs to be discussed, need to be discussed by itself, as it is discussed by itself, as a topic by itself. So it's normally discussed with this, but also studied separately, because we said that you have the theory, but also you need the practicality of it to kind of somewhat get a real grasp of what is being discussed. So we're just kind of somewhat just going through the theories of the discussion of a general idea that you mentioned that begin concerning that, as for the concern that for those regarding al-furud, those who receive what they said al-fard, that is meaning the person that they get a set portion. At times, that person could get what we said before, I would mention, could be a sixth, could be a half, it could be a third. So those portions are somewhat fixed. And the people receive those also, it is fixed. And we cover that section. Then have your next section of people inherited by way of ta'asib, which is by way of they receive something, but it's not set. They'll receive something, but it is not set. It may varies. So at times, if that ta'asib is the only person, he may receive everything. But if he's other people, then it may vary regarding the portion that they receive. And at times, they may not get anything. Where other people receive concerning the others may receive everything, and at the end, they don't receive anything. And it could be a combination of both. So, so this concerns, so just get a general idea regarding, so you mentioned regarding ta'asib, that in total, that they fall into 3 categories. Those who feel bin nafs, asaba bin nafs, just by themselves, others lighayri, by others, and others said bil ghayri or ma'al ghayri. So it varies. So the first category concerning that you mentioned, al asaba and nafs bil nafs, that there 14 male fall into that category. So 14 male, they fall into that first category, where they receive based upon on their own accord. Then you have a next set which is mainly female, that receive concerning al-asab bil ghayri. They receive due to others. That's a set of female of 4 categories. Then I mentioned that a third category regarding concerning al-asab ma ghayr, that group with others. that group that's mentioned sinfan is 2 set of people, and also they are ukht. They are formed like also female. So in a total of those who receive by asab, it's a total of what? 14, then 6, 14, we have 14, then 4, then 2. That's the number. So we have 14, then we have 4, and then we have 2. So in a total, how much? What's that?
14, 6, and 2, 22.
22. Aywa. 4, 14, 4, and 2. That's 20.
Yeah, 20.
So the amount of people in general that fall into that category that receive will be those of those 22 group of people that are mentioned in general, but it may varies. But as for their portion, it is not fixed. So at times they may receive a large portion, and at times they receive a small portion, or at times they receive no portion. But they are entitled to receive something, but it may vary depending on other factors. It may what they receive may depending on other factors. So that's concerning. So that's a general idea regarding this group. That's a general idea regarding this particular group of that are mentioned. أيوة.
بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. قال المؤلف حفظه الله, chapter 13, page 285, title Prevention from Inheritance, Hajb. This chapter has a specific importance among the rulings of inheritance because knowing its detail will help assign rights to those deserving them. On the contrary, unawareness of the rulings on such an issue may cause great harm, as the inheritance might be given to those who are not legal heirs while depriving the right persons from it. Therefore, some scholars say it is prohibited for those who do not know the rulings on prevention, hajab, to give a fatwa concerning a matter of the rules of inheritance. According to the scholars of inheritance, hajab means preventing someone who is entitled to inherit, partially or totally, from receiving all her share of inheritance according to the relevant rulings.
So the next of those things to be discussed, they mentioned Bab al-Hajab, regarding concerning that Hajab concerning al-Man, where certain people, due to certain factors, that those people are initially deserving to receive something from the inheritance. Or those people, but due to other factors, they are removed. So they are generally considered people that one may think that they are deserving to receive, but due to certain factors, then they are removed. They are removed from receiving of that inheritance, and you mention the reason for this. Aywa.
Prevention from inheritance is divided into two categories. The first category, prevention by description. This means that someone is categorized by something that causes him to be totally prevented from inheritance. The three reasons that cause one to be totally prevented from inheritance are being a slave, being a murderer, or being of a different religion than that of the deceased. Those who have any of these characteristics do not inherit, and their existence or non-existence makes no difference in this regard.
So you mentioned regarding concerning of those who may be disqualified from receiving of inheritance, that of those you mentioned by way of awsaf, by certain description or certain factors or certain reasons. And for those reasons concerned that the mane or mawane, that the barriers that will prevent them from receiving, that by way of description is three factors. One, that the person is said to be a slave. So the slave, even though he's owned, or the non-free person is owned by someone, then that he cannot inherit from the person who is said to be his like master. Then that's one factor. So the slave does not inherit from his master. Then the second factor will be a person because of qatl, because of a person you have killed that person. So your family member, son, killing his father, then that disqualify that son from receiving. So even though that's his father, and his father may be a wealthy person, but the fact that you, the son, as the one who have caused the murder of your father, the death of your father, then that disqualify you from receiving from his inheritance. Then the third reason, you mentioned ikhtilaf ad-din, where also the third factor would be by way of ikhtilaf ad-din. We find that in Islam, that the Sharia, that it takes into consideration regarding that there's differences regarding religion, but Islam, that so in certain things with Islam and other faiths, that they do not cross over. In some case, there's an allowance, and in some case, there is no such allowance. So in certain matters regarding, so of those things where there's no allowance, regarding concerning that things can somewhat cross over regarding of faiths, that in case concerning matters regarding inheritance. So if there's difference in faith, more so regarding that, the Muslim and that relative that may be a child or it may be parents, but because there's a difference in faith between both, the father and the children, or vice versa, the parents and the children, then that will mean that person is disqualified from receiving from that inheritance. So they mention ikhtilaf ad-din. So of those factors that will disqualify the person, that one is a Muslim and his other relatives, close relatives, that they're non-Muslim. So that will disqualify, or vice versa. they are the ones who have passed away, but you're the Muslim, that it may disqualify you from gaining, inheriting from them. So that's concerning of those things. Some of those things the Sheikh will discuss. Each will be discussed. Some of those ones they'll be discussed individually. Aywa, but that's the general breakdown of the things that it says hajb regarding concerning al-mana, regarding those factors. That's by way of awsaf. Aywa.
The second category, prevention by persons. This means that a specific person is either excluded from the inheritance altogether, and this is called complete prevention, or that this person is prevented from receiving a bigger share of their inheritance but allowed to receive a smaller one, and this is called partial prevention. The reason for this category of prevention is the existence of a person who is more entitled to that inheritance than the one prevented, and that is why it is called prevention by persons. This category is divided into 7 types, 4 of which occur as a result of the presence of many different kinds of legal heirs, and the other 3 occur due to the transition from one state to another as a result of the existence of other heirs.
So this is the second level that he mentioned, hajb al-ashkhas, based upon, you go back now to the individual itself. So the one before he said awsaf, not looking at the individual, but looking at other factors as a general, the certain characteristics or certain things that are there, disregarding individuals. So at times concerning that a person may be disqualified either in full or in portion. By full, the person doesn't receive anything, or by way of the person, he receive a portion, and that may vary where the person might sometimes, his portion become less due to other people who are more, people are more for the people that are more deserving than they are due to how they are positioned. So the person's share become less, but they still receive something, and in case the person is completely disqualified from receiving of anything. Aywa.
These 7 types are as follows. First, the transition from one type of a prescribed share to a lower one, such as the alteration of the husband's share from a half to a quarter. Second, the transition from one category of agnation to another one that is lower, such as the alteration of the full or the paternal half sister from being an agnant with other relatives to being an agnant by other relatives. The third, the transition from being entitled to a prescribed share to a category of agnation lower than the prescribed share, such as the alteration of the female heir from being entitled to inherit a half as a prescribed share to being an agnant by other relatives. Fourth, the transition from being entitled to inherit by agnation to inherit a smaller prescribed share, such as the alteration of the father or the paternal grandfather from the inheritance by virtue of agnation to inheritance by virtue of a prescribed share. Fifth, the increase in the number of legal heirs to a particular prescribed share, such as the increase in the number of wives sharing the same 1/4 or 1/8 of their estate. Sixth, the increase in the number of legal heirs in agnation, such as the increase of agnant heirs in sharing the whole estate or the remainder after distributing the prescribed shares. Seventh, the increase in the number of legal heirs as a result of the owl, such as the increase of the number of those entitled to prescribed shares in case of the owl. How do you say that in Arabic?
Owl?
Yeah.
Hey, owl.
Yeah, owl, yeah.
Hey, owl. Hey, but
Thus, each one of these legal heirs is to take his legal share, reduced in an amount as a result of this increase.
And so this is the second category that is said that is that this second category regarding hajb al-ashkhas, that their portion might somewhat decrease or lowered or become less due to others being due to certain factors of other people being present who are maybe deserving more. So it may vary regarding a person's share might become less because of other people who are present amongst those who are the inheritors. So he mentioned these are as those factors one have to be mindful of. Aywa.
Prevention is governed by some rules as follows. The first rule, whoever is related to the deceased through a certain person is prevented from inheritance by the same person, bearing in mind what has been previously mentioned in this regard, such as the case of a son's male child with the son, the maternal grandfather with the mother, the paternal grandfather with the father, and brothers with the father. The second rule, in case two or more Agnan heirs are involved, the one who is closer in the Agnation side will have the priority in inheritance. Hence, if there is a son and a father or a paternal grandfather, the Agnation is claimed to the son as he is of the closest side. In case they both share the same Agnation side, the closer one to the deceased has priority over the other, as in the case of a son and a son's male child, or the case of a full brother and the son of another full brother, and so forth. If the relatives involved are equal in the Agnation side and level to the deceased, the one of the stronger degree of kinship has the priority in inheritance, such as in the case of a full brother and a paternal half-brother. In this case, the full brother has the priority over the paternal half-brother, as the full brother is related to the deceased through the two parents, while the paternal half-brother is related to the deceased through the father only. The third rule, this rule concerns the complete prevention. An ascendant heir is not to be prevented from the inheritance except by another ascendant heir. For example, a paternal grandfather is only prevented by a father or another paternal grandfather who is closer to the deceased. Also, a grandmother cannot be prevented except by a mother or another grandmother who is closer to the deceased. Likewise, a descendant heir is not to be prevented from the inheritance except by another descendant heir. For example, a son's male child is only prevented by a son or another grandson of a higher level of kinship. In addition, the collateral relatives, namely the brothers and their sons, and the paternal uncles and their sons, may be prevented by ascendant heirs, descendant heirs, or collateral relatives. For example, the paternal half-brothers of the deceased are prevented from the inheritance by the deceased son, a deceased son's male child, and so forth in descendant lineage. They are also prevented by the son of the deceased or the deceased paternal grandfather, and so forth in ascendant lineage, according to the soundest opinion of scholars in this regard. Moreover, the paternal half-brothers is prevented from inheritance by a full brother and a full sister if she is an Agnan relative with another relative. Thus, the paternal half-brother, as illustrated, is prevented by ascendant, descendant, and collateral relatives. Again, it is important to stress that the issue of prevention from inheritance, hajab, is very important. Therefore, whoever is assigned to give fatwa regarding the rulings of inheritance should be completely well versed in its ruling and even apply them practically, lest he should give a wrong fatwa and consequently change the legal rulings of inheritance and deprive the legal heirs from their rights. And Allah is the one who grants success.
Yes, that's concerning that matter where the Sheikh wanted to mention regarding that of those things that one have to consider regarding the person who deals with matter regarding inheritance, that they are aware of this matter regarding al-hajab, where some people are somewhat blocked from may block others from receiving a certain portion. So he mentioned that in this case regarding as general principle that at times that this type of prevention or blocking may occur due to looking concerning that who's closer to the deceased. So the ones who are closer to the deceased or higher regarding those who have priority, then their case will be given precedent to a person who's less. Then also you have cases regarding Hirman that you might find that because of the asl, maybe the parents or the children that they're there, that a person is more distant, then they're somewhat blocked by those people being there. But if they're not there, they'll receive. So if grandparents are further down, may be blocked by the more closer relatives that are already there. So these are things that I mentioned that overall regarding, that a person have to clear regarding, who are said to be the usul, that will be by way of the parents upwards, parents and grandparents, also the furu, exactly who they are regarding the children and the grandchildren, wal hawashi, and the extended family members. So the person has to know where each of them fall, and at times where the usul and furu may block others who are the hawashi, the ones who are the other extended relatives. Aywa.
In the last chapter, it says, moreover, the paternal half brother is prevented from inheritance by a full brother and the full sister if she's an active relative with another relative.
Ay.
Could you kind of break that down a little bit more, please? Like how the significance of the sister has in that situation?
So the thing that you might find that because of the sister with another relative being there, it may block another person who's lower down. You understand? So it's in the sense they've said prevention, if they hirman, you might find that a person is deserving, but because you have other people who are more prioritized than you are. So you might find that, so depending on, so those priority ones, they will be given priority over the one that comes who are below them. So in that case, you might find that maybe sisters and half brothers, they may block other who are lower down on the line.
So in that situation, if you've got the full brother or the paternal full brother, and you've got the paternal sister, but the paternal half brother, if the sister wasn't there, would the paternal half brother have a share?
Yes, so so you have to follow that pattern.
Right.
You have to follow that pattern. So if the sister is not there, then that person they move up the chain. They move up the chain. So depending on who's present in certain pattern, then they will block certain people behind. If that person is not there, then other people then will move forward. Hey. What time? What time is? Okay, so we stop here, inshallah ta'ala. See, we'll have the adhan in the next minute, and we'll continue bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So with this particular chapter, we're kind of somewhat go through it, not quicker than we normally would. We're kind of somewhat going through it quicker than we normally would. Because we're just going through the theory of it. As for the practicality, it requires some practicality and also a study by itself, kind of somewhat to really grasp. And the English terms and the Arabic terms, sometimes they kind of go out of swing a bit to understand them.
Sister's asking a question online. She says she was told that if a non-Muslim leaves a will stating that a third of his wealth goes to his Muslim child, then the child can take it.
I said not as inheritance. So this will be seen as a gift. As we discussed concerning wasiyah before. Or should I repeat the question?
Yeah.
So the question is that, repeat the question. That she understand. The question is saying that they understand that if a non-Muslim was to pass away and that they make a will stating that their Muslim child receive a third of their inheritance, is this correct? We said that, by way of concern, if that's the case, we said no, it be taken as a wasiyah, as a gift, not as a part of the inheritance. So that person will be disqualified as an inheritor, but they'll be qualified to receive it as a person who's getting it by way of a gift. Because as I said, as we discussed just today and to be discussed further, because of the ikhtilaf al-deen, that are part of the inheritance, that becomes of the things of al-hajab, that a person can be blocked from receiving anything or disqualified from receiving, is because of difference in deen. So if one is a Muslim, as we discuss to come, and a non-Muslim, so the normal practice, they do not inherit. But they can give each other gifts. But with certain criteria, shouldn't exceed a third of the value of the inheritance. It can exceed a third, but be deemed as a gift, not as a part of inheritance.
He's very quiet.
Right. Okay, sir. Adhan? About adhan. Hey, تفضل.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله.
Wait, 1 second. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu rasulullah. But just somewhat with the example that was asked regarding that. For example, that a person have died and the person is a non-Muslim, but they have a Muslim relative that they have stated in their will that they want that non-Muslim or that Muslim relative receive a third of their, give them a third of, to give a third of their estate. So what would be said, and the person, for example, the person left behind $1 million, their estate is £1 million. They left £1 million behind. So one, that person, their burial will be taken out of it, right? So from the million minus their burial costs, minus if they owe anyone anything for those things to be paid off. Then in line would be that Muslim relative now. So for example, what then minus would be also that whatever remain would be divided, right? And say, okay, a third of that will be given to that Muslim relative, and whatever remain of all those things, then that is given as the inheritance to the family members. Understood? So that amount, so it is taken out from before the inheritance. Clear? So that amount, because it's a wasiyah, so it's to be honored, because the person made it wish that upon my death, I want this person to receive a third of whatever. Or they might put a figure, but that figure, if the figure, when it is calculated, it's still below a third. If it is more than a third, they only get a third. But those other certain things have to be taken out first, right? Which can would be debts, their funeral cost, expenses. Then whatever remain, then that will be calculated to see, okay, you get the amount that they say, which would be a third. For example, that their debts and their funeral costs, that it costs what? A non-Muslim. So talking about 10, okay. Just an example. That's 20 is out. So 20 is out. So how much remain? 80. Then that would personally, so a third of that. Now a third of that would be a third of 80 would be just say 20. Just say 25. Just say 25. They get 25. Then that other 50 that remain, then that will go, or 55 that remain, that will go as the inheritance to be shared amongst the whoever is the inheritance.
Question is like in a country like this.
In a country like this.
Yeah, if a Muslim wants to pass away, for example, who will be in charge of doing the inheritance here?
So if the person is in charge and said that, so the person said that it will be the next family member that either they appoint someone, right, or the person said the family member, if it is a wife, then the wife will be, if she's there, then she would, the most responsible person amongst them that is present. To be the next of kin, as they would say, the next of kin. So it either be the wife or the children would be the next of kin. But I said, They will, said, as for the inheritance, is not said they would go to either. If, in most cases, our cases, the person will not know how to do the calculations, right? So the next of kin, that their responsibility will be one first, the person, whatever is wealth that a person is buried. Then also, if there's any wasiyah, any form of debts, that those things are paid out. Then whatever remains, they will get someone who understand regarding matters that relates to an inheritance, for them to, and give them all the relevant information, meaning that they would need for them to make that calculation. So it could be, in that process, could be a group of family members or just one person leading on that. But it would be the person that said, would be the, where's the word, it's the person, next of kin would be the person that would lead on that somewhat. In more, aywa.
In the case
It was still recording?
in the
Okay.
case of the Muslim whose parents or family member gives them something, should it be stated to that non-Muslim family member that that this Muslim can't take this as a inheritance, rather you should put it in your will as a gift, or is the terminology not really?
Yeah, so that is because so he says that it would be better for the person somewhat to explain to that family member, right? So to have clarity from the start to the family members, then that's better. But if there's not per se clarified, that's left, then a person can somewhat just accept it. It will be taken as a gift, as it cannot be accepted as inheritance. So it wouldn't be, because of that, so it wouldn't be deemed as inheritance. The least that will be said, it is a gift. The most that can be said, it's a gift. But said with those other things involved. So that inshallah ta'ala will end. Billahi ta'ala tawfiq.
Maybe he has from his family, even that are not Muslim, can he give them a gift? Just
Yeah, you can give, so it can be